So hello everyone, thank you for joining us this evening, and you are joining On Purpose and some of our fellows to chat about the associate programme and what it feels like to be an associate, and also kind of what the constituent parts are. So to let you know firstly that you guys are all muted, so that's kind of happens automatically when you join in, and we are going to do a proper Q&A session at the end of the kind of presentation of sorts. So hope that you are happy to hold your questions until towards the end, mainly because whenever we do questions midway through, people just ask what's coming on the next slide. So I'll try and get through all the content, and then you can actually ask us kind of the more interesting questions. And we would like you to use, if you're happy to, the Q&A function, which is down the bottom. So if you hover your mouse down towards the bottom of the Zoom screen, it should come up with Q&A, and you can type into there any questions. So do let us know if you are having any kind of technical issues. I'll try and keep an eye on that, and we've also got Camilla on the line who can try and keep an eye on that as well. Cool, and we will get going. So we'll do some very quick intros. So my name is Kate. I'm co-lead of the Associate Programme in London, and I'm also a fellow of the programme. So I was in our October 2015 cohort, and I've been part of kind of the core team running the programme since January last year. We have also got with us this evening some awesome panellists. So we've got Alice, Priyanka and James. Do you guys want to say a quick hello and say kind of your relationship to the programme?
Yeah, hello. I'm an April 2018 fellow. Yeah.
Hey everyone, so my name is James, and I was on the October 2018 cohort, so I've just finished the programme.
Hi everyone, I'm Priyanka. I'm on the April 19 cohort, so I'm still on the programme. I've just started my second place.
Yeah, so we have a nice range of people. Alice has been out of the programme for a little while, James has just finished, and Priyanka is still in the midst. So yeah, some good perspectives for you to hear from later. And the setup of this evening is that we are going to, hang on, I can actually share my screen and then get up our slides. So with any luck, if I hit the presentation button, this will then go properly live on your screen. Is that working, guys?
I can see it.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So this is the little kind of content slide of what we're going to chat through this evening. So this is the welcome. Then we'll talk a bit about On Purpose, so who we are and what we do. We've got some slides about the shape of the associate programme, so digging down into some of the detail. Then the most exciting part, which is hearing from Priyanka, Alice and James, so from our fellows and associates. And then, as I said, we'll do a Q&A at the end. So hopefully that is cool with everyone. So here they are, looking lovely. And as we've already done a quick intro, I'm just going to swing past this slide and tell you a bit about On Purpose. And I'm hoping to chat for about 20 minutes. So we've got time to hear from everyone and then have about 10 minutes of questions. So I will do my best to kind of keep on track. So On Purpose, why do we exist and what drives us? So our mission as an organisation is to create a world with an economy that works for all. And so we recognise as an organisation that our current economic system is failing. And On Purpose is a community of people working to develop and demonstrate new ways of working and new business models. So as I said, our mission is to create an economy that works for all. And by that, we mean an economic system that's fair and equal, so everyone can access it in the same way. And an economic system which operates within the boundaries of our planet. And we see the failure of our economic system around us every day, as I'm sure you guys do. And we see it in the way that we use resources without thought for how they renew themselves, in the way that wealth flows to those who are richest, and in the way that our climate is changing as a result of human activities. And On Purpose hopes to offer an alternative to this model. So we work with individuals who want to work with purpose and with organisations who are purpose-driven. We focus on people because we see people as that absolute foundation to the way that world currently works, and therefore they're the potential that we have for change. And we explored kind of new forms of leadership that we know we're going to need for this shift. We don't know exactly what those are going to look like, but we explore and work with our associates to kind of look through some of these different ideas. And our programs essentially offer this kind of leadership development to the people who we work with. And because we're working with people who start their lives as associates outside of the impact-driven space, we're bringing into this sector new talent. So we hope to support the growth of individual organisations and also the wider sector. So this slide here shows us a bit of our theory of change. And essentially it's about people, it's about leadership, it's about an exploration of what we might need to do differently, how we might move beyond kind of top-down hierarchical systems of organisation and management into new forms of leadership which allow us to create that future that we want to see in the economy that works better for everyone. And we deliver that, through the different programmes that we run. So the associate programme and why that exists. So we've got some lovely quotes here, and we took part in a kind of competition of sorts with Escape the City earlier this year, and they were looking to find the 100 best companies in the UK to escape from. So, if you've got a job in the city and you're looking to get out, what are the top 100 organisations you might want to join? And we came in at number 14, which was really nice. And so these are some of the quotes that our programme participants, so associates who are current programme participants and fellows who are people who've completed the programme, gave us on our public profile to talk about the programme. And so the associate programme exists both for those associates and also for the transformation that they can bring to the economy. And we exist to develop our associates, develop those people and give them the space they need to develop themselves. And we package this through a year-long leadership programme, bringing together a cohort of people who support and challenge themselves and one another on the journey. And so I think these quotes say a few different things about the programme, that it's career focused, but it ranges more widely to consider life beyond work, that it gives you a rare opportunity to reconsider the work you do and how it aligns with your values. And also that it's kind of fun and interesting and impactful in all sorts of different ways. So I've got a slide that tries to just give you the absolute basics of the associate programme. So, and this is essentially to make sure we tell you the basics before we get carried away with all the details. And so there are really a variety of different ways that you can describe the programme. But one that's helpful is a leadership programme. And we work specifically with people who have kind of got high potential. So people that we think will have the potential to become impactful leaders in this space. The programme is year-long and full-time. So all of our associates quit their job to join us. And once you're on the programme, you work in placement 4.5 days a week, and you join the On Purpose team for our learning and development programme every Friday. So it's year-long, taking you either from April to April or October to October, depending on which cohort you join. And it's full-time. You're working 5 days a week, with 4.5 of those days in placement with an organisation, and the other half a day a week coming to join us. And the third point is that we combine experience, support and inspiration. So the programme is specifically designed to give you actual hands-on experience in purpose-driven organisations. The other parts of the support that you need to make a successful transition into the space. And then the third part is those ideas. So the kind of inspiration you need, the knowledge, the approaches that you'll need to understand, both in order to make an impact in whichever career you pick next, but also to actually help you make that informed decision about what you might want to do with the rest of your career in this space. So we have a stipend of £1,800 a month. We think it's really important to pay people for doing valuable work. And we are, as far as we know, the only kind of salaried programme in this space. So rather than asking you to volunteer for a year or to put kind of 20 grand into an academic programme, we actually pay you to contribute meaningful work into the space. And the stipend's £1,875 a month, and that equates to a yearly salary of £22,500 per year. So it's not a huge amount, but essentially it allows you to support yourself in London over the course of the year, ensure that you're not kind of taking on debt in order to do the programme, and make sure that it's accessible to a wide range of different people. And then the final point, which is really the most important, is that it's about preparing you for a leadership role in this space or sector afterwards. So we build into the programme kind of thinking about your next steps, and that's what the majority of people are using the programme to do, is to figure out where they might go from, you know, quitting their old career and starting a kind of an exploration of different avenues that are open to them now. So who we work with. So we've got a picture of our lovely April 19 cohort. You can see Priyanka on the left-hand side. And we work with 2 cohorts of people each year. So that's generally between 16 and 20 people, although we've just gone up to 22 for our largest ever cohort, which launched in October this year. And we pulled together that number of people, so between 16 and 20 generally. And the same number of organisations who are working in this space to create positive social and environmental impact. The cohorts launch in April and October, and we are currently open for applications for our April 2020 cohort. So that will launch at the beginning of April next year and take you through to the end of March 2021. And our associates join us from a wide range of different sectors and functions. What they have in common is a minimum of 3 years work experience, most often in commercial environments, but they might join us from the world of finance, advertising, engineering, consulting, or law, and they all have a desire to change the way they work and moving into organisations where they can make a positive impact. And some are moving from industries which have a kind of a very clear negative impact, others moving from industries where they're just not clear kind of what their positive impact is. So yes, this is most of our April 19 cohorts, and between them they've got experience in publishing, in politics, got people from the financial services space, an ex-teacher, someone from FMCG, which is Priyanka, advertising, consultancy, law, kind of etc. And they are a lovely bunch. And then we've just got one slide to tell you a little bit about our impact as well. So just some stats to throw at you. So we've now worked with 507 different people, which means that we are growing a really nice large community in London, Paris and Berlin, which are the 3 cities in which we run at the moment. And we scaled to work in Paris in 2015 and in Berlin in 2017. Each month we ask all of our associates, so the people currently on the programme, how much they would recommend on purpose to their friends or colleagues out of, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10. And our net promoter score, which you calculate from those totals, was 9.2 last month, which is a really nice promoter score, which means that people are happy, and they're also kind of active ambassadors of the programme too. In terms of what comes next for people when they do the programme, between 85 and 90% of our fellows keep working in the impact space, and the 85 to 90% kind of wiggle room there is just because it depends on how you define kind of working in the impact space. So it might be people working directly for social enterprises, or people who kind of fall into the 85 to 90%, that kind of strange 5%, might be working in government, say. So they're not directly working in the space, but they're working in an organisation that's kind of supporting this way of doing business. And then finally, 92% of our fellows report that they now have purpose in their careers, and that was 26% before they joined. So hopefully that says that we do a good job in helping people successfully make the transition, so moving the vast majority not just through the programme but properly into the space, and that once they're there they do still have a real strong sense of having that purpose that they've been seeking in their careers. And then just a little word on a few of our fellows, because I think the programme can be quite hard to kind of visualise from the outside and know what on earth it might mean to do the programme and come out the other end. So you'll hear from James and from Alice kind of what they're doing now when we get to them a bit later on. But here are a few of our fellows just to give you a sense of the kind of breadth and range of roles and organisations that people go on to join and be part of. So we've got here Martin from our October 16 cohort, top left, who's now director at an organisation called Breadwinners. They're a super cool organisation working with refugees across London, and they do that through working with bread. So they have they make beautiful artisan bread and they sell it at farmers markets across London. And their whole purpose is to create employment opportunities for people who are entering the UK as refugees, and helping them kind of upskill and find their space kind of when they arrive in London. We've got Ruth, who's in the middle, who is part of the October 17 cohort. She's now operations director at Divine Chocolate, which is the only farmer-owned chocolate company in the world. So they are 48, I think, % owned by farmers in Ghana. And it was the organisation began because there was a group of cocoa farmers in Ghana who wanted better access to markets and essentially to be closer to the end product and the end market, rather than being part of a very long supply chain where most of the value gets added at the top and the farmers see very little of the kind of value that they're creating in a kind of monetary sense. So she's now working in the ops there and working very hard on Brexit, because all of their bars get produced in Germany, and so there's some hideous level of tariffs that they're having to negotiate to make sure that all of their ingredients end up in the right place and they get their bars to all the different supermarkets and other places to get them into our hands. And then bottom left, we've got Eloise, who's in my cohort in October 15. So just an example of someone who's working slightly outside of the space, but working kind of very much on the issues that we think are important. So she's a senior advisor in the Government Inclusive Economy Unit. And that sits within DCMS, so the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. And the Inclusive Economy Unit are working on a range of different projects around responsible business, access to funds for social organisations, social impact bonds, kind of a range of different things. And then on the right hand side, we've got Maud from Paris, who's working for Lemonade, Fabienne from Berlin, who's working for Value for Good, which is a consultancy in Berlin. And then bottom right, Candice, who is in one of our very first cohorts in London in 2010. And she's now an investment director at Big Society Capital and has just written what I'm sure is a really interesting report. I haven't read the full version yet because it's 100 pages, but a big report on scaling in the social sector, to investigate how we can better enable organisations to take their products and services to scale rather than working on a more local level, which is where the majority of social organisations might begin. Okay, so that's kind of our top line details. So hopefully that gives you a sense of kind of who we are, what we do, kind of what our outputs and our outcomes are. And now we've got a little bit more detail on the shape of the associate programme. Yeah, a little bit more about those different constituent parts. Here is a slide that sort of explains it. So the programme brings together 2 placements, mentoring and coaching, learning from experts through our learning and development programme, and community support and engagement. And I'm going to run through those kind of one by one now so you get a bit more detail on each of them. So placements, and this is what most people are obviously focused on when they're considering whether they might apply to the programme, and it's what you do for the majority of your time when you're an associate. As I said, you work 4.5 days a week with your placements, and you will be matched with 2 different placements across the year. So you have the opportunity to have experience within 2 different types of social organisations or environmental organisations, giving you that a bit of range to kind of understand different approaches, kind of maybe figure out where you think you might fit. And because all of our cohorts and all the associates within them will do direct swaps kind of between the cohorts, the associates in the cohort, you get a good understanding of what's been going on in all of those different organisations as well. So I've kind of pulled together, like just tried to do one slide on a little bit about what our placements look like. And I suppose what this hopes to say is that there's a range of different kind of deliverables within placements. So we have associates working or have worked on projects around project management, impact management, strategy, marketing, ops, so a range of different types of role. There's a few different ways that our placements will kind of spec the work that the associates do. So in some cases, associates will work on a discrete project, which is going to take them the kind of full 6 months of the placement. Some people will do a mix of different projects, and others, particularly in small organisations, will do more, will just respond to the organisation's needs kind of when they arrive. And then there's obviously a range of different kind of sizes and scales as well. So startups, B Corps, etc., etc. And then in terms of the area of impacts that we work with the only limiting factor is that we will only work with an organisation that's creating positive social or environmental impact. And within that, we work with a real range. So I picked out here Nesta, who are an innovation foundation, and they create some really interesting challenge prizes. And that's what our associates have most recently worked on there. So where there is an area of a kind of a social problem where there's not much innovation happening around it, they will put together a kind of a monetary prize as like an innovation challenge to get people to kind of put their talent and efforts into solving that problem. We've got a couple of organisations on this slide that work in the finance space. So Big Society Capital, which is one of the big organisations in the space and span out of David Cameron and his Big Society back in the day from dormant bank accounts. So that was designed as an organisation just to put lots of money into the space. We work with people like Friends of the Earth who work in the environmental space, and our associates there have worked with their innovation team and their experiments team. So looking at new ways of encouraging people to be more environmentally responsible, whether that's electric cars and trying to set up new infrastructure in Bristol, kind of etc. Who else have we got here? We've got King's College London, so we have a placement with them most years in their widening participation unit. So how do we make education more accessible to all, and working with a range of different kind of populations, I suppose, but people who are coming from backgrounds or situations where they might be less likely to engage with the university or to engage with a university like King's, which kind of sits at the top of lots of league tables, and ensure that the university is doing as much as it can to engage with people like that and bring them on board. And then other organisations like Blueprint for a Better Business, that are down the logo bottom right, and they work more as like a consultancy. So they work with different organisations in this space, and they see that their route to impact is by working at scale. And so they will partner with big corporate organisations to help them find and embed their purpose and adapt the ways in which they're working to be more socially responsible. So that's a quick whiz through a bit of stuff about our placements. And again, the fellows and associates will talk more later about some of the work that they've done in the programme. And we've got a slide on our L&D programme. So I'm just checking the time. Our L&D programme. So this is some of the kind of framework around which we base our Friday afternoon trainings and the learning and development that people do on the programme. We have kind of two areas. So above the line here, you'll see that there are three nice circles around impact. So financing impact, measuring and managing impact, and scaling. So these pieces are about how you do this work, how you go about financing your impact, whether that's through crowdfunding or whether it's through social impact bonds. How do you measure and manage it? So what do we understand when we talk about impact? What are all the different frameworks for kind of measuring it, quantifying it, and how might we go about communicating it? And then scaling it. So how do you go from one project to creating an organisation to replicating or franchising or taking another route to see that this solution kind of developed at scale? And then below the line, we have the second kind of core piece of the programme, which is around leadership. And our model around this begins at the self. So leadership, how you lead yourself. It then branches out into how you lead teams and organisations. We then move across into the organisation development and culture. So how do you create kind of happy, healthy work cultures, particularly in this space where we all care about the work that we're doing, and so we tend to work hard. And then a piece on the right-hand side about systemic change. So how do we as individuals think more fluently in terms of networks? So how do we understand our place, our organisation's place within wider systems, wider networks, and ensure that we are tackling the real problems rather than just kind of tackling a symptom of a problem, which often happens. I'm going to race through slightly because I think I'm behind time. So we've then got our layers of support. So how do we ensure that you've got everything that you need to make this year a success? And so in the middle of our little model here, we've got our associate, and then there are lots of different wraparound pieces. that help the associates ensure that they feel well supported and they've got someone to reach out to when they need kind of help or assistance or guidance or advice. So every associate will work with a mentor, and we align the mentors with each organisation. So you will work with 2 mentors over the course of the year. They all give their time free of charge, so they work with us pro bono, and they come from a real range of different backgrounds. They might be consultants in the kind of commercial space, they might be working in the space, they might be fellows of the programme. Everyone also works with a coach, and so you get matched with an executive coach for the year. And the function of the coach is to really kind of look at your personal development. So where the mentorship is more closely aligned to the placement and the work that you're doing, you work with a coach on really whatever it is that you want to talk about. But often associates will talk about, their values, how they understand their motivations, how they might make decisions about where they want this year to take them, whether they've got any kind of behaviours that they want to kind of experiment with. Or do something different with once they've got the opportunity out of their old job and perhaps a pigeonhole they used to be in, and to try kind of flexing their style in their new placements. And then around the edge of that, well, I mean, I don't think cohort kind of really sets around the edge of that, and I'm sure the guys will tell you a bit more about that. But every associate is part of a cohort, so you've got a group of people doing this journey at the same time as you. They become your best buds. You kind of go and hang out at the pub on Friday evenings. We help people set up big 5 groups, so you might work on your development goals with a set of other people. They're the kind of the first resource for making sure that you have a fun year and a challenging year. And then beyond that, we have our network, we have our community, and we have the On Purpose core team. So there are 4 of us who run this program and are available to make sure that everyone is having a good time. And finally, we have our community. So here are a few pictures of some of our community with their kind of little billboards about what their purposes might be, which we did for a video we created a year or so ago. And so really the community is just like a big resource of people who are all out there having done this program or being mentors or coaches or train with us. They've all kind of participated in some way. They know what you guys are about, and they are now off working in the space in different ways. And so the opportunity is there to connect as much as you like with the kind of wider community. It's really good for getting jobs. So when I finished the program, I got my first job through going for a coffee with a fellow, and there was a job, and I then got an interview for the job, and off I went. They are great for having a coffee during your placements to maybe understand something that is specific to that part of the sector or part of the role that you're doing, to kind of get kind of a jump start on that kind of new way of working. They're also just super fun people to kind of hang out with. And there are various different ways that you can interact with them. So some cohorts now host their own kind of events after the program. So the October 17 crew run something called Second Wednesdays, which is like a discussion kind of group. And we also have something called Random Coffee Trials, where you sign up and every month you'll get matched with somebody just to go and have an interesting conversation with. And then a little bit about who we look for in terms of is there kind of a profile of the type of person we think makes a good associate. And our kind of recruitment and all our interview process is set up very much to not be looking for a particular background or a particular skill set, or to be asking for a specific number of years of experience. So we're looking for kind of either kind of intrinsic skills and aptitudes and abilities, which can apply to people from all different walks of life. And those are up on the screen now. So we're looking for people who have motivation and persistence, who can kind of set themselves a challenge and go and get it done, who've got good interpersonal skills so they can land in a new team, in a new placement, and be good at working with people, that they're bringing good attitudes and mindsets, that they're great problem solvers, and we have a separate interview that tests on problem solving. And then the final piece is kind of the eligibility, which is a minimum of 3 years work experience. But yeah, very importantly, we're not looking for a particular kind of combination of skills or experience. And our kind of the age range is anything from kind of 3 years upwards. So we've worked with people who've got like 15 years of experience and everything in between. Okay, we're finally there to hear from associates and fellows. So I'm going to hand over to Alice, who has come up first on our slide. So I'm going to mute you, Alex, and you can tell us a bit more about your experience.
Thank you so much, Kate. Yeah, oh, my face is going to stay that big the whole time. Okay, I'll deal with it. Yeah, thank you. And it's really nice to be here today and actually show my experience exactly 2 years after I was exactly on the same webinar. So it's quite like closing the loop, which I really love. So well done, guys, on being here today. I think it's the first step, and the first step is really important. So well done. It's the beginning of a really cool journey that you're going to go through, hopefully. So a little bit of about my background. So I have a business degree. So I studied business because I've always been interested in how corporates could be a force for good. So I didn't really go that way from the beginning. So I started working in the chocolate industry, selling Nutella for a while, which sounded like the dream job. And then realized it wasn't the dream job. It was very unfulfilling, making people, be fat. It really just, anyway. Then I moved to the marketing department of Ferrero, and then I started working on a really cool corporate social responsibility program. So that was really like much more in the direction I wanted to go to. But it was a bit frustrating because I was still in the marketing sector, in the marketing department. I didn't have, like, it was like very niche, and I didn't feel like I had the leadership which went with progressing. So I master's road, and that was amazing. Like really broad. Found a job in London as a project manager in the travel industry, and that was fine for a while. But it was like the definition of like corporate at its best. Really, it was like really like slow processes, very long. I don't know, like on a tower in Canary Wharf kind of job. Nothing is really getting done. Really good Christmas parties, but you just feel like you're missing something. So I started volunteering on the side, which I really recommend to all of you guys, because I feel like it's such a great opportunity to have a chance to have a feel for the sector and gain some like really valuable experience. Also really good for your on-purpose interview. I think it helped me a lot. So I started a food assembly in Brixton, which is basically like an online food market that connects local food producers with the local community. And that was really a good chance to say like, oh, this is exactly what I want to be doing. The kind of project I'm excited about, and I just don't want to continue doing that on evenings and weekends. I just want to do like full time doing this kind of role. And I was increasingly just sad to wake up in the morning and not be excited by what I do, and then seeing all this news about what's happening in the world and seeing that it's just I don't do anything about it, and there are so many solutions that exist, and why am I not taking like my part of responsibility and making a difference in my little level. So then went to Escape the City website and found On Purpose, and that was just life-changing, exactly what Kate told you, but this is not only going to change your professional life, but like your whole life. So yeah, I didn't expect the amount of things it brought, like the amount of positive brought to my life, basically. So my first placement was with Project X, which is basically a startup of, I think we were 8 people, and they had like the very small ambition of working with the 10 industries most responsible for climate change and biodiversity loss, and make them transition into like being more sustainable and adopting sustainable innovation. So that was really intense. 6 months, really like steep learning curve, but learned a lot from it. Was really good experience. So that was my first placement. My second placement was Scope, which is a disability charity that Katie had in a slide earlier. I was working on a program trying to understand how technology could be more inclusive of disabled people, so that technology doesn't become a barrier, but an enabler for disabled people to have a more independent life. Again, like like really good placement. I really like the kind of combination of the first one being climate change, second one being social change. It was a really good mix, and yeah, I feel like it gave me a really good feel for the sector, and also obviously having the cohort of like my 16 other associates on the cohort with me, having all the placements like so diverse in the sector really helps a lot with understanding the sector. So yeah, I try to list down like the key takeaways for On Purpose, and I think the first one, which Katie mentioned earlier, is the community and the network. So the community is something that you really can't underestimate. I feel like, you know, when you go to, like, for me, the social environmental sector was something when you don't know it, you're a bit scared, or you don't know how to approach people or whatever, and On Purpose, so the like just to approach all the like the broader network, it just gives you confidence, because you like, you know, you have this name to kind of back you up, and people in the sector know it, and you can comfortably go for like coffees and stuff, and people are really welcoming. They're really happy to support and help you like on your little journey. And I just found it really amazing to have this name to support me and give me this basically this confidence. But the On Purpose network, like community itself, has been amazing as well. Like it really helped me find a job after On Purpose as well. So my mentor, my coach, were really supportive in my job interviews. They really helped me a lot. My associates as well for my cohort, and actually, yeah, so it was a good example. This morning I had a coffee chat with my ex-mentor from a year ago, and he thought he knew I had this job, and he wanted to talk to me about behavior change. So we had a coffee. So it's just like it never ends basically. It's like strong connections that you build with people, and it's really lovely. So that was my first takeaway. The second takeaway I was reflecting on this morning, I think, is the fact there is no perfect job out there, but On Purpose will help you see all the possibilities, like everything you can be doing in this sector, and help you basically narrow down the kind of things that you make your heart sing. I like this expression, like this idea of there is so much you can do, but actually if you really want to have an impact, focus on the things that are really key to you, and then On Purpose really helps you with this reflection, this like self-reflection and personal development, which is, I think, my third key takeaway, which is something I really didn't expect would be so life-changing, is to help. It makes you basically explore yourself more than professionally, but also, your leadership type, style, your strengths, your like also your like fears and failures, and all of that makes you, and how can you use that to be the best person you can be, to have the best impact on the world, basically. And that was for me like really life changing. So I really love that. What did I want to say? Yes, and what I do now. So after On Purpose, I started a job at Hubbub Enterprise, which is the social enterprise branch of an environmental charity called Hubbub. And basically what we do is we try to make sustainability interesting, engaging, and we don't want to make you feel bad about what you don't do, but rather encourage you to do the right thing for the planet and for you. So we run and design campaigns around things that people care about, like food, like reducing food waste, reducing meat consumption, stuff like this, or like fashion, like removing, stopping fast fashion, this kind of stuff, air pollution. I'm running a campaign around recycling and the circular economy. On Monday, Tuesday, I was in Edinburgh running this, launching this campaign in Scotland, which was really exciting. And yeah, I feel like it's a really happy ending for me, which that's why I'm really happy to be there to like support On Purpose. Like, yes, exactly. How to say, like, don't give hope that there is a job somewhere for you. And don't feel like you're stuck, like life is so short. You have 80,000, I think, hours to have a job. So just make the most of it. And On Purpose is going to be great to help you do this transition. Yeah, that's it. I think that's me. Last 10 minutes.
You're great. Thank you, Alice. That's awesome. And I'm just going to pass very swiftly on to James with his amazing catalogue photo here. James.
Wow. Where did you steal that from? Okay. Yeah, hi everyone. Also really happy to be here to share a bit about my own experience. So yeah, as I said, I was on the October 18 cohort, so I've just finished the program. So I'd be very happy to answer kind of questions that you might have in terms of like how it feels to kind of finish and that kind of thing. But so if I kind of wind back to the beginning, so where my background is in finance, so specifically asset management. So I used to work for a large asset manager in the UK doing private equity fund investing. So we're investing in private equity funds across Europe and Asia. And I was doing that for around 4 years. And to be honest, I had a good experience. I had a lot better experience, I think, than some others have in the financial sector. But I was lucky to have a really good team, and the job was interesting. But at some point along the way, I guess I started to kind of think more broadly about kind of what the implications of some of the investments that I was making were kind of having on the world, and kind of, I guess, it's I mean, it sounds, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I guess I had a kind of period of reflection about what was kind of like the end goal of what I was doing. And I remember actually so I used to look at lots of different funds and do lots of kind of analysis and kind of have to make decisions on whether we would invest in these different private equity funds. And one that came across my desk was a kind of impact orientated fund. And I remember kind of looking at the due diligence materials and kind of having kind of my eyes open, really. I was kind of like, wow, why aren't all of the investments that I'm looking at doing this? Because this is surely the way everything should be done. We should be considering the social and environmental impact of the investments we're making. And that kind of set off a train of thought for me around, okay, well, maybe I need to think about changing my career. And I thought for a while that I'd try and go straight into impact investing, and did a bit of research into that. And I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I came across the On Purpose program and kind of read about it. And then kind of immediately I was just like, wow, actually, if I am thinking about changing my career, then maybe I should try different things, because maybe working in finance isn't right for me, and I don't really know that. I've never done anything else. So was really the kind of draw for me in terms of why the On Purpose program. And then so I was lucky enough to get a place on the program after applying, and my two placements shaped up really nicely. So I had my first one was a company called Lightful, which is a tech for good company that works with charities and social enterprises, either to social media kind of messaging. They've got a kind of a purpose-built platform that they've made that helps charities kind of post congruently across their different social media channels. And then they do kind of some more traditional tech consulting, but with a specific purpose of serving charities and those in the purpose-driven sector. So I was kind of project managing on a project there for 6 months, and it was a super big culture shock for me, because I was used to kind of, as I was talking about, a super slow moving financial institution, and kind of thrown into this very startup-y environment. And it was just such a great learning experience for me, because just kind of being kind of at the coalface, dealing with things that I would have never had to do before. And also it was in a sector that I was just completely unfamiliar with. So like technology obviously is quite a specialist area. So, it was, I'd be lying if I said it was like easy all the time, but like what was so good is that, throughout the program, you kind of, each week you come together with this cohort of people who are all doing this program, but having a different experience in their different placements. And you kind of, each week is kind of punctuated by this convening of who fast become like very, very good friends. And it gives you like this perspective on what you're doing, and it kind of gives you that, it just kind of empowers you to kind of try different things in the workplace that you might not have otherwise tried, and just kind of and kind of like test your limits, and trying to like give you the confidence to try and tackle things that you wouldn't have otherwise maybe tried to, or at least for me anyway. And so that was a really good experience. And then my second placement was a company called the Impact Management Project. So this is an organization that is essentially trying to build the field of impact measurement and management. So faster and wider uptake of businesses and investors measuring and managing impact. And it's a super interesting organization because they are doing that through a kind of multi-pronged approach. They had the first part of this project, which was building consensus around kind of what good impact measurement and management looks like. And then now we're working with kind of 12 standard setting organizations who together kind of represent this sufficient like audience and sufficient influence to kind of bring about a kind of systems level change in how we think about impact. And so my role on this placement was essentially using my experience in investment to kind of engage with investors who are interested in measuring impact, and kind of helping them learn and think through how they could apply that to their own investment processes and their own portfolios. So the two placements ended up being quite a nice balance for me, because I had this one where I was, just completely in this area that I was just totally unfamiliar with, and then this other one which, I was able to marry my previous experience to the placement, but also was able to incorporate, the impact side of things, which was also kind of unfamiliar to me. So that's the kind of the placement. So I guess what else stands out for me? I mean, again, for me, I like really loved the training program. It's just got such a breadth to it. I mean, you saw a bit with the slide that Kate showed, but it's everything from leadership, problem solving in like a business and your own personal life context, like influencing skills. You learn about impact measurement, you learn about systems change, and it's just like the tone of it is, to my mind, perfect, because it's relaxed, but it's like you do go there to learn, and you really do, and it's kind of, there's a lot of kind of discussions, like Q&A with the people doing the training. So I always looked forward to that. And then the other kind of takeaways, I think I definitely went into this program minded to kind of just get this experience in these different organizations, and I was not so much thinking about the value of the cohort, and actually it's just been phenomenal for me. I mean, I genuinely feel I'm coming out with kind of, my cohort was 16 people including me, and like there's 15 people that I've just got on so well with, and we're like a really tight-knit group now. And obviously the nature of that will change as you move on, and we're all kind of going our separate ways now, but we've kind of established different ways of kind of like keeping in contact, which I feel like very confident that I've made some friends for life, which is amazing. And then the other bit, and I kind of echo what Alice said, actually, the personal development side of things was a little bit unexpected for me. I kind of I wouldn't regard myself as a super good person at doing introspection, but it's like I've really kind of had my eyes open to the value of that this year, and it just kind of gives you this the training, the personal development, the kind of support that you get from the cohort. It kind of gives you this new way of thinking about your future, and it's like, it's just a confidence to kind of say, I can approach these things with it. I've now got a tool set that I can approach these situations that I didn't have before, and I've got a confidence that things work out okay. You can land into a placement and you can do a good job, and it's been a transformational year for me in that regard. And then what am I doing now? So I've been very lucky actually that I love my last placement, the impact management project, and I have ended up staying on there. So I've taken a full-time role there now, and and continuing to kind of do the work on the projects that I was working on during my placement. I think that is me. Obviously, I'll be open to any questions afterwards. But I guess I'd just close with, it's been an overwhelmingly positive experience for me. And for those of you that kind of were logged on before we kind of officially started, I was joking, having like vicious withdrawal symptoms from and that's kind of how I feel. But it's great.
Thank you, James. Cool, and let's go. And just to say thank you very much for your questions as well. So we've got a few coming in now. I'm going to hold them until Priyanka's had a chance to talk to you as well. So let's move swiftly on to Priyanka, and just let me know, Priyanka, when you want me to flip a slide.
Hi guys. So yeah, thank you for taking the time out to come and listen to us all ramble on a little bit. And I'm on the April 19 cohort, so I'm still on the programme. I've just started my second placement. So before On Purpose, my background's in mechanical engineering. I worked at Unilever for a number of years primarily as a packaging designer. Did a little bit of time in marketing as well. And it was a great experience, but towards the end of my time there, I was just feeling quite frustrated and restless. I was working on some sustainable packaging initiatives that didn't go through for reasons that just kind of weren't justifiable to me anymore. And it was quite a sort of competitive, quite a hierarchical team, and there was a lot of office politics, and I was just kind of questioning what I was doing there. And I just sort of I didn't want designing plastic bottles to be my legacy that I gave to the world. And I just really wanted to do a job that I could feel really proud of, and just kind of go there and do a good job and not have to sort of change who I am or my values as part of that. So I quit my job, and I took some time off and did loads of fun things. And then I typed jobs with purpose into Google, and On Purpose came up, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I was reading the website, and just everything it was saying was exactly what I was looking for. And I think there was this quote on the website that said, sort of, doing less harm is no longer good enough. And when I read that just summed up how I sort of felt about my time at Unilever, and it just sounded great. So I applied and very luckily got on. So I started in April, and my first placement, sorry, okay, it's just on the next one. My first placement was at Day One Trust. Sorry, apologies, these slides were like very quickly put together and not particularly pretty, but it stops you from having to look at that awful picture of me, so it's fine. So my first placement was at Day One Trust, and they're a non-profit that run 2 schools. They run East London Art and Music, and then we opened the London School Academy this September, and just a really cool, fun, creative place to work. And yeah, absolutely loved my first placement. I was setting up an apprenticeship program for school leavers to get them sort of kick-started in their creative careers. And I think the toughest part of it was kind of getting over this imposter syndrome. So kind of before that, all of my past jobs had kind of been based on my academic credentials, my technical expertise, and kind of suddenly being thrown into the deep end with none of that sort of credibility and not having a clue what I was doing was terrifying, but also amazing, and actually made me realise that I have loads of wider abilities and wider things that I can do that mean that I can be useful in a place and make great impact. So that has been a real sort of sharp learning curve, and a great experience to just do something completely out of my comfort zone, and has really kind of built my confidence, particularly coming into my second placement, which has been amazing. you've heard a lot about the support you get as part of On Purpose from like your cohort and buddy and the team and your mentor, your coach, and it is really like none of us can exaggerate enough how amazing that support is, and being part of that community and just being able to draw on such a huge range of experiences, and just so much fun. And the part that's been really amazing for me is having time with my coach and kind of actually having that time and space to sort of reflect and think about not only what I want for my career, but just kind of my lifestyle in general. And as the guys have said before, that kind of introspection. And one of my things, looking at kind of what's holding me back, has been around sort of telling that inner self-critic to shut up a bit. So that's been really incredible, and to kind of go through that journey with all of that support. And in terms of what's next, obviously I'm still on the programme. Sorry, Kate, I'm just on the next slide. But so I don't really have like a takeaway as such, but my favourite part is definitely kind of being part of the On Purpose fam. And if anyone had told me before I started that I'm going to love Friday afternoons, I would have been like, I don't think so. Like 4 o'clock on Friday is pub. But Friday afternoons are incredible. Like that training session, the training sessions are, you know, the learning and the quality of the learning and development program is incredible. But around that, just kind of the whole cohort experience and being able to kind of bounce ideas around with this group of people, all from really different backgrounds, but have that kind of the same sort of values and the same desire to change things, just sparks so much like creativity and great conversations and great debates. And that's been, I just feel so lucky to be able to be a part of that. And so my second placement that I'm on at the moment, a month in, which is going scarily fast, is at Mental Health First Aid England, and they do sort of mental health awareness training, and I'm digging into the sort of user experience design of some of their IT systems and things like that. So again, a completely different part of it. And in terms of next steps, I have no idea, which is really exciting. So yeah, just kind of exploring lots of different options and then figuring out what's going to happen come April. And yeah.
So much, Priyanka. Awesome. I'm just going to say that we are now at 1 minute till our kind of broadcast finish time of 7:30. So if you have to leave us at 7:30, then thank you very much for joining us, and do send us a question if you don't have time to kind of listen. We're actually recording this webinar, so you'll be able to listen back to any of the questions that other people have asked. But if you do want to ask one and you can't stick around, then send us an email at recruitment@onpurpose.org, and we will come back to you. So yeah, so we have heard now from our awesome fellows and associates. So let me just see what's, yeah, we now go to the Q&A. We've got a few already in the bag from Kitty in particular, who's asked some great questions, and a couple of others. So do use the Q&A function if you've got anything that you would like to ask. And I'm now going to see if I hit answer live, what happens. So we'll just go through them kind of one by one, and up to kind of any and all of us to answer, whoever feels like they've got a good response. So if I hit answer live, let's see what happens. I don't know that it does anything. So we've got a question from Kitty that I'll read out, which is, how did you feel going from a larger salary to a very low one, mortgage, etc.? How do you manage that? So perhaps someone would like to pick that up.
Yeah, I can say something about that. Just so you know, Kate, you selected that. It just told us that you wanted to answer the question. Has Kate fallen offline now? I think she has. That's fine. I can still see the question, so we can just kind of work through it. So, Kitty, yeah, the larger salary thing. Obviously, yeah, that is a real thing. I think each person's kind of circumstances are going to be different. You know, I didn't have a mortgage on when I did the program, although obviously I'm paying rent, which I think in many cases is worse than a mortgage. But essentially, I mean, my only advice is that you just you do the calculation of whether you think you can like afford to do it, but also you should be encouraged by the fact that actually one thing I learned is that there are so many ways to kind of cut your spending from what you are doing, and actually, you know, there was a bit of a kind of initiative within our cohorts where, you know, people, you know, were just sharing different ideas as to how to save money. And of course, because you're on a program with a group of people that are all in the same position, you naturally kind of tend to do things that are less expensive socially. So yeah, I'll stop there because I think in case someone else has something to add to that.
Just I really agree with that, and I feel like it comes naturally that you reduce your spending with your earning, and it's not so much of a big deal. The same way now that we are you're also like back on a like normal earning again, it's like naturally going up again, so you don't even realize. And it's I don't know, I feel like it teaches you how to live with less, which is not a bad lesson. And it's actually, as Kate said, it's still like the living wage in London, so you can actually live. I went on holidays, I didn't feel like it was so bad. You obviously don't make a lot of savings at all, but you can absolutely live without adding any debts at all.
Should we move on?
Hopefully that was helpful. James, sorry, my connection dropped at the moment that you said Kate. So
yeah. All I was saying is that when you press answer live, it says that you want to answer it. That's all.
Oh, okay, that's all it does. That's not that helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we have a question from Naomi as well, and she says, a boring practical question. It sounds like the application process moves quite quickly. Assuming your application moved forward after the initial application, how much notice do you get before interviews? So I think, shall I take this one?
Yeah.
So yes, it moves ahead fairly quickly. We have a closing date of the 3rd of November for this round, and we will be doing our first set of interviews in the week commencing the 25th of November, and then we have 3 weeks. We're doing a couple of days per week, so it's the week commencing the 25th, the week commencing the 2nd of December, and the week commencing the 9th of December. So we will be sending out invitations to interview about the 15th of November. So we give ourselves some time to go through all the amazing applications and decide who we can bring to interview. We'll bring about 70 people to interview from an overall application number of about 200 applications. And then we'll send out that invitation on about the 15th, and we ask everyone to complete a doodle poll. So they give us, everyone gives us their kind of preference for an interview slot and a backup. And so we'll be confirming kind of interview slots around the kind of, I don't have my calendar to hand, about the 19th of November or something. And so there's not kind of a huge amount of time between that and the first interview week, but if you interview in the second or third week, then you're getting a couple of weeks notice. Once we've done that kind of invitation to interview, we also do some extra pieces of support. So I host a conference call or a Zoom with everyone who's been invited to interview to talk through the different interview kind of types that we do, and give some kind of hints and tips on how to kind of approach those in the best way, particularly because we do 2 types of interview. We do one that we call person experience interview, which is kind of competency based, and we do a second which is more around the problem solving. And people get a little bit freaked out about the problem solving interview, which is fair enough because it's not often kind of not a commonly used interview technique. And so particularly for that one, we kind of run you through, what are we expecting to kind of to know or to hear from you? How might you go about doing the right type of preparation for it? That will happen between the kind of confirmation of interviews and the first interview date itself. That was a lot of detail. I hope that is helpful. So I'm just going to read off my phone now because when my connection dropped, all the other Q&A bits disappeared. I've got one from Ina here saying, what have been the biggest challenges that you've faced during the programme?
I can say something about that. So I think for me, I think the the biggest challenge is that, especially actually in the first placement, is that because and maybe this is specific to me. It was quite a jump in terms of moving from finance to like technology, and even just like the type of organisation, really large to small. And you really want to do a good job, so your instinct is to kind of really focus on the placement and the day-to-day of the placement, and that comes with the risk of kind of not taking advantage of all of the other opportunities that On Purpose offers. So I think there's like a big, and for this, and it does kind of run through the whole program, there is a big question of finding the right balance with the things that you spend your time on. And yeah, I'll stop. I think I'll stop there. I was wondering, Kate, there's one other question on the finance to tech significant change from Veronica, so I'll just answer that while I'm speaking. So just on the interview process. So there's two things to that. So one, you need to bear in mind that all of these placements have signed up knowing that almost the point of this is that associates come from different backgrounds. So you shouldn't be so worried about that piece. And then the other bit is that you get like a placement summary, and you can read it and you can think through, okay, well, how do my skills apply to that? I know I don't work directly in the industry, but I can kind of bring to bear different experience, more generalist experience that can apply. And that's what I put forward in the interview process, and that's how I got the placement with Life. So I just, sorry to take it off topic, but I just thought I'd answer that bit.
Thank you. And yes, we've got another question about how one gets matched with placements. So we'll go to that next, but let's just, any other challenges anyone wants to chat through?
I think I'd second the kind of like, there's so many things to get involved in. So definitely across my first placement, my placement was amazing and really intense and kind of took up a lot of my time. But then I kind of say yes to everything and realised that I was just doing kind of way too much, and finding that balance can be quite tricky just because it's so exciting. And I think, so trying not to just say yes to all the things at the beginning is probably my advice when you start your program. But at the same time, sort of similarly to what Jane said, like your placement is obviously a huge part of it, but it's not the only part of it. And before I started, didn't realise how much the Friday afternoons and the cohort and the other events kind of around the program would be such a big part of my kind of On Purpose journey.
And I will just agree with all of that.
Simple, awesome, thank you. Cool, so we'll go to Kitty's question, which was how you match associates with placements, because James touched on this very quickly when he was talking about moving from kind of finance into the tech space. And so, yes, we have a two-stage matching process. So when you're kind of becoming part of the program, we sign up our associates and our placements, so both sides kind of at the same time, and also with the same expectations. And so, as James said, they're not expecting to get people who are specialists in the particular space in which they work. And we kind of sell the program as such, and we sell kind of the associates as being really good generalists. So people who can problem solve, who have got great interpersonal skills, who have really got the right motivations to be in this space, and are really kind of good and motivated and persistent to achieve the kind of the impact they want to achieve. And so each placement and each associate kind of knows going in that that they're not kind of constrained by whatever role it might be that they used to do or whatever industry they used to sit in. And so one way that people use the program is just to kind of push themselves outside of a pigeonhole. And certainly that's what I use the program for. One of the ways I use the program, one of the ways the program used me, was to kind of get me out of working in an industry where my name was associated with a very particular type of work. And I thought I could do more than that, and I was interested to do more than that, but I didn't find opportunity to kind of in my old industry. So really using that opportunity to stretch myself and go and try different things. But to take you to actually how that works, so it's a two-stage process. The first piece is a big exchange of information. So we send over to our placements each of our associates' CVs and a 1-minute video that each associate puts together for their application. Those details go over to the placements, and then to our associates we send over what James mentioned, this placement summary. And so each of our organisations will write a kind of 4, 5, 6 page kind of summary of who they are, what they do, where they're based, and also what the placement or the project or the deliverables looks like that the associate will be working over the first 6 months and the second 6 months. So you get to have a good read through of all the different options that are being presented through the cohort. And we give everyone about a week to look at all of that, and then ask both sides to send back some kind of categories. So the people or placements they're most excited about working with, those that they think would be really cool, or people they think would do a great job, and any that just don't feel like a fit. And we run all of that data through an algorithm. One of our fellows made us this amazing Excel workbook that just crunches all this data. And it helps us find some really interesting conversations. So the second stage of matching then kicks off with matching day, where we bring all of the associates and placements together, and every associate and every placement will meet 8 of the other side. So amongst the cohort, there's just like many people basically speed dating for a morning. So you meet with 8 placements, you get 20 minutes with each of them, and you get the opportunity to chat a bit more in detail about the placement, do a bit of a chemistry test on who the people who've come to represent the placement are, and do they feel like they'd be great people to work with. Ask your questions, they'll ask you some questions. Just get to know that a bit more in depth. Then after that, when you've met those 8 placements, we ask you and we ask all of those placements to send back a second set of preferences. So again, kind of grouping the most exciting, the really great, and any that just don't feel like a fit. And from that data, we put it through another slightly different Excel workbook that crunches all of that data. And that's how we determine who will match with who. And so at that final point, what we're looking for is a combination that works for the entire group. So every associate has 2 placements, every placement has 2 associates, everyone has a 1 and a 2, rather than having 2 1s and not having anywhere to go for the second 6 months. And then once we've got a situation where everyone is matching somewhere, then we get as close as we can to those preferences. And so we very much do not guarantee that you will get the placements that are necessarily your absolute top number ones, because it's not just about kind of an individual experience, it's about the whole cohort working, but we do get as close as we can to your preferences.
And just to finish on that, sometimes it's not a bad thing, because you might be disappointed about what you have, but actually it's like turns out to be much better than the one you like ranked first or second. So it's like you never know, and it's like about having an open mind when you do your ranking, and then accepting what you have, and then it's part of the program to just lead the experience.
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking for people who are happy to be kind of flexible within that arrangement. So it is a bit of a risk or a bit of a chance going in, but we promise that every placement is going to have some really awesome learning opportunities, and that you're not going to come away from it feeling as though you've just delivered kind of what you've done in your previous job or whatever. And yes, I got a placement that wasn't at the top of my list, and I had just such an awesome time there. It's a great system. We think it works. Let me just see who else we've got in here, and hopefully that helped, Kitty. So we've got a question from Veronica as well, based on location, so pertinent to being on a webinar rather than in person. So Veronica says she lives in Canada and would like to participate in the programme and move to London to do so. So she asks which interviews can be done virtually and which are in person. So another great question. So you do 3 interviews as part of your kind of second part of the application for On Purpose, and all of those can be done virtually. So we're about to put in place a new kind of in-person versus Skype interview policy, because we find that some people do fly in from all sorts of different corners of the world to come and meet us in person, which is greatly flattering, but not great for our planet. And so we're putting in a kind of formal policy for this round of interviews that says, if you can't make it by train, we would really rather that you interviewed via Skype. So there is one kind of contingent piece of information there as well, which is that we won't make an offer to join the programme to anyone that we haven't met in person. And so we can do that in a couple of different ways. And the reason we do it is because we're working very closely with our placement organisations. And the reason they sign up for the programme is because of the quality of our associates. And we just want to be clear that the people we're bringing on board are kind of committed to the programme and also the kind of people that we'd like to hang out with. So we do ensure that either one of the core team or someone from our community meets each of those people in person. But it might be that we have a fellow who lives nearby or near-ish, and we can facilitate a coffee or another meetup to have that conversation. Or if you were coming through London at some point, or through Paris or Berlin, where our other teams are based, then we could organise a coffee in one of those places. Hopefully helpful. What else have we got? So we've got one from, maybe from, I don't know how you pronounce your name, so apologies if it's wrong. Iselin or Iselin, do you have any tips on highlighting transferable or generalist skills, I think, or CVs through the application process? So highlighting your transferable and generalist kind of skills on your CV for the application process. So one of you guys want to chat that through?
I think in terms of kind of highlighting your skills, I think it's obviously talking in general around your experience and the experience you've had is really important. I think for me, the part that was probably more important was just like your passion for the space and for the change you want to make. So definitely like on purpose kind of application and interview process, I found was like more personal, I guess, than sort of applying for a normal job. So obviously it's quite a big change that you're making, and I think getting across that passion for wanting to make that change and why you want to make that change is, I think, in some ways almost more important than your kind of work academic credentials. I don't know if that's what other people have to say about that.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, Bianca. I mean, of course, I mean it's hard to say because I'm just sure that, you know, I would just say that in any job that you are obviously doing the things specific to that job, but there just are so many other things that are transferable across jobs. So it's just really, I don't know if I'm not I'm definitely not an expert in writing CVs, but I would just like my tip would be just know that you do have generalist skills that you can talk about if needed. But again, I agree with Priyanka. It's like having a passion for wanting to do this and a kind of a clear reason for doing it is just as important.
Cool. Just to pick up on that, so in terms of kind of how you might want to write your CV, what we are, I suppose, looking for is kind of a way in. So we will get applications from people in all sorts of incredible careers, doing all sorts of incredibly impressive technical things. But we would love it if you could translate that into kind of normal person speak, so we can just kind of understand it. And if that means going a little bit more generalist, then please do. And it's also really helpful for us to get a sense of, I suppose, the kind of the scale or the specifics of what you've been working on. So rather than perhaps saying, managed a team to do X, you could tell us that you've managed a team of Y number of people based in kind of X geographies to deliver Y with a result of Z. That would be really helpful, just because it helps us just get a sense of the kind of the scale and the applicability of that. But yes, hopefully that's helpful and that's answered your question. If not, then pop another question in and we can always come back to it. So we have a question from James as well, who says, "Hi guys, really helpful, thank you," which is nice, so thanks for that. So he says, "Do you have access to co-working spaces, or where did you find it most useful to undertake group assignments? Did you use coffee shops or is there a central location?" I can say about our office. So we've just moved offices actually. So we're now based in a place called Cannes Mezzanine in Borough, which is just near London Bridge in London. And we have a space there which is available all Friday afternoon and on evenings as well if people want to come in and do kind of group chats or kind of group assignments. We don't have a kind of a particularly high requirement for groups to be kind of working together on something very structured, but lots of cohorts will come together in different combinations to kind of talk about or work on things that are important to them. So people have done kind of online courses like MOOCs together. People have done reading clubs. We've got cohorts doing kind of big fives, so around their development goals. And so that can happen anyway. I think, was it October 18 who did like Saturday brunches to talk through development goals? And yeah, so it could be done in coffee shops, kind of wherever you like. And we know some kind of nice venues around London that are doing cool things, kind of socially and environmentally.
Yeah. And I don't know if this will continue, but we'll have a 1-year membership to the House of St. Barnabas in Soho.
Yes, that may or may not continue. At the moment, yeah, we have access to a kind of a social enterprise space in the centre of town as well.
Yeah, I think just in the experience of my cohort, I think yeah, quite a few people did like free like acumen courses, like in addition to like the ones that like interested them. Like I don't know, there's like public speaking, there was like design thinking courses, and that was just kind of very organically happened. Just people, you know, wanting to like take the opportunity of like having a cohort of people that are kind of interested in these similar areas. And yeah, I mean, there's no specific co-working spaces you have access to, but you know, people just find ways to do that in their own time, like you would in any other case. Yeah.
Cool. Hopefully that's helpful, James. And then we've got a question from Angharad as well, saying, I know the group here were part of the London cohort, but for placements in Paris or Berlin, how fluent in either French or German are associates required to be? Which I can answer very quickly, to say that you need to have a level of fluency in German or French to be part of the relevant cohorts there. So ability to speak kind of, I think, business level French or German. And they will interview, they do 2 interviews in their local language and they do 1 in English, because there's an expectation that the on purpose kind of international community language is English. And there's lots of kind of collaboration with organizations across kind of different countries. So being able to speak English to a decent level of proficiency is useful as well. So, and on that point, so the cohorts in Paris and Berlin run on the same timings as ours. So the next one in Paris and Berlin will launch in April 2020. And they're both accepting applications for that cohort at the moment with a deadline of the 3rd of November. So do apply for those cohorts if you've got kind of language skills in either French or German. And you can also mark on your application form if you're interested in 2 cities. So we ask that you do your application from the website, from the kind of city website of the program you're most interested in. And then as you work through the application form, there's a tick box where you can say that you're also interested in Paris or Berlin or London and Paris, depending on where you're applying. So yeah, so do go ahead and you can mark that you're interested in one or other city. Cool. Have I picked everything up? I'm just going to have a quick look.
So there was a few from Kitty.
Yeah.
You can see those. You can see those, or you can't.
I can't, so they all disappeared. Okay. My connection.
The top one was how many people applied for each cohort. I think you answered that one actually already, didn't you?
Yes, I think I did tangentially. Yeah. So about 200 people for each cohort, with a final selection of between kind of 16 and 20 people who make it into the.
Yeah, and then the next one was do you match associates with placements? So we've talked about that one, I think, as well. How much choice is it? Yeah, so there's an expression of choice on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, did Kitty also have a question about what happens to your salary afterwards? Maybe one of you guys can go on to answer that.
Yes, so maybe that was directed at me actually. So if you take a full-time role, so in my, and I think this is true of most cases, is that if you take a full-time role at your placement, it's just a negotiation as it would be at any other job role. So you don't stay on the salary that you have on purpose. It's just, most of these organizations, if they're taking you on full time, have a full time position, and that has its own salary, and then it's just as it would be normally. And I think if you take a job within 12 months of your placements ending, there's some kind of arrangement, isn't there, with On Purpose, Kate? Maybe you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we're funded is through our placements. So we're a not-for-profit social enterprise, which means that we don't make a profit. And because we're a social enterprise, we trade the majority of our income rather than relying on donations or grants. And so we're trading 95% of our income at the moment. And that income and the money that runs the program comes from our placement organisations. So they will pay a sum to On Purpose that sits between kind of 30 and about £35,000 for the year, and it includes the associate salary at £22,500. And then there's a fee to On Purpose on top of that allows us to run the program. So kind of pays for my salary and the other people running the program, pays for all of our L&D and all that kind of facilitation we do for the cohorts. And so if you go on to work with one of your placements in the year after you complete the program, we ask them for an additional sum to kind of show the value that the program has contributed to that organisation over the longer term.
Cool. So and next, the other one was, where do your mentors and coaches come from?
Another great question. So maybe one of you guys can say some specifics and I'll say some generalities. So coaches are all qualified registered coaches. So we only work with people who are registered with one of the accreditation boards. So all of our mentors and coaches work with us on a volunteer basis. So they're giving their time free. And they come from a range of different backgrounds. So the coaches tend to be maybe on their second or even third career. They're coaching either full-time or part-time. That tends to be their kind of main way of making income. And they're most likely working with fairly senior kind of leaders, either in the corporate or in the social environmental space. And then our mentors come from a wider range. So again, they're bono, and we have a number who are fellows of the program, so they've been through an associate themselves, or we have people who work within the space, so they might work for a placement organisation or kind of just more widely in the social environmental impact space, or they might again come from the corporate sphere. So we work with a few people from Bain and McKinsey and those other kind of consultancies who are quite helpful because they're quite generalist in the way that they work. They use kind of problem solving that's similar to the kind of On Purpose approach, and so they can be useful to our associates on solving various different issues and problems and challenges and opportunities. Anyone want to say who they've worked with?
Cool. Yeah, so my my coach was well, I mean, yeah, she was a coach. I mean, I'd say she was a qualified coach, and she was great. So I got on really well with her. I actually saw her this morning, and it was nice to go. Kind of, it was like my last discussion with her to kind of like round off the year. But for me, that worked out really well. It kind of like got on well, and she kind of asked the right questions of me at the right times. And then both of my mentors were previous fellows, which I found really good because they have an understanding of what you're going through in the placement context. But I know others that didn't have fellows that had an equally good experience. So I think it just there is all different kinds that can be helpful.
And just to say that we do match people as well. So we have an eye on what the placement is asking for in terms of skills or experience or the type of work that the associate will be doing. And where we've got someone who knows something kind of useful about that, we obviously match them up so that we kind of bring that added value rather than just kind of having a general person to talk to. Right, it's now 8:01, so I'm going to do a final question and then say thank you very much to everyone for staying with us for so long. So Naomi asks, how many fellows go on to found their own social enterprises? And I think the number is relatively low. So we tend to work with people who are interested in kind of building and scaling kind of social ventures. So we work less with entrepreneurs and more with people who might think that their particular skill set or their particular passion is in helping develop an existing organisation. Having said that, we do have fellows who have launched their own thing. I'm just trying to have a think of none that are springing to mind at the moment. So
the Impact Collective.
Oh yeah. So we've got a number of fellows who consult together and work on different projects called the Impact Collective. And actually one of those people called Nadia has co-founded an organisation called Safety Net, which is about making fishing more sustainable. Essentially, I think trying to help fishermen catch fewer fish that aren't actually the species they're trying to catch, and helping them ensure that what they do bring in is exactly the right stuff. So avoiding all that bycatch that at the moment gets kind of trawled in and then thrown over the side and probably doesn't go on to live and doesn't end up on anyone's plate, and that seems to be the worst of all worlds. So yes, hopefully that's helpful, Naomi. Just going to see if Camilla's got anything else on here for me. Oh yeah, and then Parul in my cohort has just launched a new organisation as well, and her family heritage is from the Gujarat in India, and when she's been visiting her family, she's come across all these amazing artisans who create beautiful handmade crafts, but who really struggle with finding a kind of supply chain, a route into markets kind of in the West. And so she's working with them to design and manufacture really beautiful items, which are then sold in the UK. So yeah, a few people who've done things. If you're very much feeling like you're an entrepreneur, then there are loads of different programs that work more specifically with that type of person. And so you might want to check out Year Here, which kind of focuses specifically on social innovation. And every associate of theirs will found a social venture during the course of the program. And then there are various incubators for people who've got an existing idea as well. Cool. Hopefully that was helpful. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Half an hour over schedule, so we will do better either at timekeeping or at managing expectations for the next time we do one of these. But from me, thank you very much. Hope that was useful, hope it was interesting. If you've got any outstanding questions, send us an email, recruitment@onpurpose.org. Your application's in for the 3rd of November. Should we all do a collective wave and a goodbye?
Thank you, bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Don't hesitate to contact us if you have like any further questions or something.
recruitment@onpurpose.org. Send us an email.
Cool, thanks, Kate. Bye, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye.